Maryland's Missing and the Murdered is a weekly YouTube channel that covers the topic of missing and or murdered individuals from the state of Maryland. If you like this channel, please like and subscribe and click the bell so you'll be notified when the next cases are released. Any updates to cases will be pinned in the comments section of each video. Nancy and Stephen Riggins were married with a 5-year-old daughter named Amanda in 1996. They were living in Hanover, Maryland. On July 3rd, 1996, Stephen called police to state Nancy wasn't home when he arrived from his overnight shift at work at 6 a.m. on July 2nd. He told police he waited 48 hours because he thought that was the law in Maryland. Nancy's minivan was in the garage and the doors were unlocked. Stephen arrived to find their daughter Amanda sleeping in her room. Stephen also found Nancy's wedding rings on her dresser. Stephen told police that he last saw Nancy on July 1st at 8 p.m. He reported to the police that Nancy's clothes, a computer, and $300 were missing from the home. In tracing Stephen's day on July 2nd, Stephen took Amanda to daycare, vacuumed the interior of Nancy's minivan, loaned his power washer to a neighbor whom he told that Nancy had left him, and then Stephen went to sleep. Stephen got a friend to watch Amanda while he went to work that night. Investigators revealed that the couple were having marital problems stemming from Stephen's affair with Amanda's babysitter, Amy. That had started when Amy was 14 years old in 1992. Amy would come over while Nancy worked, and Amy would go to work with Stephen at night to spend time together. Stephen told his co-workers that Amy was his daughter. During their time together at Stephen's job, he would tell Amy that Nancy was leaving him, and when she did, Amy could move in, and then they would get married. A few months before Nancy's disappearance, Nancy confronted Stephen about Amy. She was undoubtedly upset and threatened to call the police and to get a divorce. Amy, now 18 years old, told police on June 30th that Nancy had called her, confronted her about the affair, that Stephen had told her about it, and she threatened to tell Amy's mother. Amy told Nancy that, quote, it was a one-time thing a couple months ago, end quote. But Amy ran to Stephen about it, who stated, quote, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, end quote. The following day, on July 1st, Amy called Nancy, and she admitted everything, including how long the affair had been going on. Nancy also called Amy's mom. Nancy proceeded to call one of her co-workers and told them everything, and she wanted a divorce. Finally, she called another friend named John, where she said she was leaving Steve and taking Amanda to live in Pennsylvania. That night while at work, Steve called a co-worker in early because he had to take Amanda to daycare. On July 2nd at 10 a.m., Steve called Nancy's friend John to see if he could watch Amanda because Nancy was gone. Also on that day, Steve called Nancy's work and found out that she did not show for work. Nancy's mom called, where Steve told her that Nancy was out shopping. Steve also met with Amy to ask her to move in because Nancy had left. 4 days after Nancy disappeared, Amy moved in, and Stephen gave her Nancy's engagement ring. Steve then sold the minivan. On July 4th, Amy told Steve that her father thought Steve had murdered Nancy. Steve laughed, but he was also mad at the same time. When investigators returned to Steve's home, Steve then told him that told the investigators that $2,500 was missing and that Nancy had gone to Virginia. His story then changed to last seeing Nancy on July 1st in the morning. On July 8th, Steve told detectives that Nancy had left a note, but he threw it in the trash. On July 9th and July 23rd, search warrants were issued for the Riggins home. By now, police began to suspect Steve heavily in Nancy's disappearance. They learned that Steve could leave work without anyone noticing, and he had, in the past, told co-workers about killing his wife. Detectives tried several times to get Amy and one of Steve's friends to get him to talk by wearing wires. However, during one conversation with Amy, Steve told her that Nancy had ran away with a man named Bob and that she was in a drug rehab in Florida. Another search of the home with luminol on January 15, 1997 was negative for blood. On February 4, 1997, Stephen Riggins was arrested on sexual child abuse charges due to the relationship he had with Amy at age 14. He pled guilty and served 18 months. He was released after 13 months. In August 2000, detectives learned that while Steve was in jail for the sexual abuse, he told a fellow inmate by the name of Marshall that he had killed Nancy. The inmate told detectives that Steve had come home from work in the middle of the night on July 1st and strangled her to death. He never did tell the inmate of the location of her remains, however. Another inmate by the name of McKinney came forward and stated that Steve wanted to sue the county and would share the money if he would provide an alibi for him during July 1st and July 2nd. Steve told McKinney that Nancy was with the fish. On September 21st, 2000, Stephen Riggins was arrested for his wife's murder. He was found guilty on July 21st, 2001. And he was sentenced to life in prison. In October 2007, investigators went to visit Steve in prison. They told Steve that if he revealed where Nancy's body was, they would speak on his behalf during a future parole hearing. 2 weeks after that meeting, Steve decided to tell them where to look. In the woods, 3 miles from their old home. He pointed to the area and said, quote, "She's right over there," end quote. Thank you for joining me this week. If there's a Maryland's Missing or Murdered case you'd like to see on this channel, email me at marylandsmissing@gmail.com. My X account is Maryland's M&M. Music is by Silent Vengeance. Sources will be listed in the outro, and I'll see you again next week. Be kind to one another. You never know what will happen tomorrow.